This guest doesn't really need much of an introduction. It is British comedian Jimmy Carr. Hello, Jimmy.
Oh, hi. I was hoping you could be wearing some sort of Versace bathrobe. If that's not convenient, then this is. I get it. It's from home, but please.
Yeah, I dressed up for you.
I'll give you 5 minutes now. Why don't you just go and slip a suit on and let's do this properly.
I don't think I even have I don't own a suit here.
Okay. Well, tell me everything. Cut me off a little slice of you. What's going on? What are we talking about?
I mean, if you got your own show and you're doing it from your house or a hotel, why not have a copious amount of alcohol and a fancy bathrobe, right?
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Why not?
It would seem rude not to.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's your pleasure.
Yes.
It's a privilege, frankly.
You know what? It really is.
Yeah. No. This is a well. You'll look back on this as a high point, right? Question me. I'm willing to. I might take the fifth on something.
Perfect. I want to know first, how'd you get from accountant to comedian? Like, if we go all the way back to the beginning.
I used to work for Shell Oil, which until maybe 2 years ago was a perfectly reasonable thing to have done.
Right.
And now it would appear I worked for the Nazis. Greta Thunberg would have you believe. So I worked for Shell Oil in marketing, basically raping the planet. I'm so sorry, planet. And then I kind of went from that to joining the circus. I was in my mid-20s and I said, yo ho ho, a pirate's life for me. I left it all behind because I wanted a life less ordinary. I suppose I had what I like to call a quarter-life crisis. So the idea of I was struggling in my mid-20s. I hadn't really found my purpose in life. And I think that's kind of the first big adventure of life, is finding your purpose. What are you going to do? What do you bring to the party? How are you going to live your life? And I found that it felt very late. I felt like becoming a comic in my mid-20s was like I was old to be starting doing this. And looking back, you think I was impossibly young. But, at the time, I was really kind of hungry to get started.
Well, it seems to have worked out.
Yeah.
When you look at all the other comedians, who's the most unfunny comedian?
The least funny?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's very subjective. Comedy is incredibly subjective. Like, your sense of humor is a bit like your taste in food or your sexual preference. Like, how spicy you like it depends largely on just how you were born. Like, you don't get to pick that. If you like the spicy stuff, which I do, if you like the kinky stuff, oh yeah. If you like the edgy comedy, that's my taste in comedy. And if you think I'm funny, you're right. If you think I'm not funny, you're right. It's not for you. It's a binary response I'm looking for. You either laugh or you don't. But who's the worst comedian? For me, that would be whoever's mildest. The mildest. You could show this to anyone. For me, it's just a bit blah. That's not my taste in vodka.
I agree with that. Do you think the world is now too, society as we've kind of evolved a little bit here, do you think we're too politically correct or too easily offended?
No, I don't think so. I think you can joke about anything, but not with anyone. And I think freedom of speech is not free from consequences. I think it's great that people now have a voice on social media to say, oh, I didn't like it. Right. It used to be you could just tut at your TV screen and go, oh, I don't like that. And now you can get together with some friends and go, no, I really didn't fucking like that. That's okay. I mean, as long as they end it there.
Right.
I've got the freedom to say it. They've got the freedom to say I don't like it. Trying to get me cancelled, really, please. Cancel culture is the new burning books. And anyone that burns books looks like a dummy 50 years later. The people that were burning Beatles records in the late 60s. Really? Feel good about that now?
When you look back on it, do you have one particular joke that stands out as, that caused a bit of a stir?
I wish it were just one. I mean, I've got so many jokes have caused so much offense over so many years. Here's the thing. The joke that ends my career, I've already told it. It's out there on YouTube somewhere, and it's perfectly acceptable until one day it isn't.
Right, that's fair.
So it's that thing where you go, I can relax. The culture is changing. I'm trying to hit a moving target here. I'm trying to stay relevant and funny. and people are changing the rules, and that's kind of fine. I think it's kind of fun. The audience get that it's just jokes. You should never really have to apologize for a joke. If you voice a strong opinion on stage, then maybe you could get it wrong. But if you're just doing jokes, really, they're jokes.
Perfect. Let's talk about the book, Before and Laughter, a life-changing book.
Sure. What would you like to know? I'll pitch it to you if you like. Here we go.
all of it. I want to know about all of it. So it's for your son. I want to know everything about it.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was very generously given an advance by a publisher to write an autobiography. Basically, all comedians were given an ultimatum in the lockdown by our management. Either do a podcast or write a book. And I took the gentleman's route. So I wrote a book, and I wanted it to be half about me and half about you. I figure even the biggest fan of me is going to be a little bit interested in my life, but much more interested in their own. So there's a self-help element to it because I wanted it to be a book that someone could sort of get something from that would help them. And it was really going back to the things that helped me find my purpose in life in my early 20s. The things the self-help stuff that helped me. And I kind of thought writing a self-help book, it's low-hanging fruit. You know, Jordan Peterson and Eckhart Tolle do not know their way around a dick joke. And I do. So I figured I could make this palatable and fun. And there's such brilliant wisdom out there in self-help. But God, they're earnest. And I wanted it to be a really fun read. So it's about me, it's about you, and it's life-changing book is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but hopefully it might help.
I think it's great. I mean, and this show airs on the Oprah Winfrey Network in Canada, so maybe it'll be on Oprah if you're watching a book club selection.
I don't think Oprah watches her own channel, does she?
Probably not.
I think she probably thinks TV stations are for owning, not for watching.
Yeah. She certainly doesn't pay well. You've done some Comedy Central roasts.
Yes.
Do you enjoy those? How's that different from a normal, when you're sharing the stage with other comedians doing a roast like that? Do you approach that differently than typical stand-up?
Yeah, I think so. It's basically a joke writing exam. So you find out who else is on the dais and who you know who you're roasting, and then who else is there, and then it's a joke writing exam. So you write 50 jokes about each person, and then you whittle it down to the best 2 or 3. I mean, I adore doing it. I did the Comedy Central roast I host a roast show in the UK, but I did the big Comedy Central roast of Rob Lowe, which was a joy. Yeah. So we had Ann Coulter was on the show, who was a right-wing firebrand Trump supporter. And I said to her, Anne, you're the most right-wing, hatchet-faced, right-wing bitches alive. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be this way. You could kill yourself. Yeah. And you know what? I got my wish. She absolutely died that night.
That I do remember watching that, and it was cringe. Well, hopefully your book outsells hers. I mean, it was cringeworthy. So you and she, I'm assuming, you've never done lunch afterwards or kept in touch?
No, it was a weird thing. It's a really good lesson in that. Every day's a school day, right? So I saw her, people afterwards came up to her, and she absolutely died on stage. I mean, it was just awful. And they'd written, the writers at that show, if you're not a professional comedian, if you're like a contributor, there's writers for you, and they're brilliant writers. They're really top end comedy writers. They're fantastic. So these writers had prepared something for her, and I was in makeup with her, and it was on a level with. Remember when Martha Stewart did the roast? Yes. Snoop Dogg was there, and she was just so funny. Yeah. Well, she was funny because those same writers wrote a brilliantly funny speech for her. They gave that level of funny speech to Ann Coulter, and she shooed it away and said, I'm just going to do my own stuff. The arrogance, the lunacy of thinking you can walk into that sort of arena and just wing it. I mean, crazy.
Cringeworthy. Who would, I mean, if you could roast anyone, if they were going to do a Comedy Central roast, you're going to be there, and it could be, the subject could be anyone. Who would you want to roast if you could roast anyone?
I'm trying to think of who would be. I mean, it is that thing of like someone with enough in their career that you really feel you could go to town. I mean, if Michael Jackson were alive, it would be quite the event, wouldn't it? That would be. It feels like they really missed an opportunity there.
That's pretty much it. Like, it's so quick, it's so simple, and we're done.
Okay, well, this is one of the most kind of carefree rehearsals I've ever done. Let's get you dressed and let's do the show.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you know, despite your lack of professionalism and the booze and the everything, what an absolute joy to talk to you. Thank you very much for taking the time, man.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate this so much.